welcome to the World Bank's virtual studio. What a perfect platform to talk about digital agriculture and new frontiers in food systems. I am your host, Femi Oke. Coming up, we will talk about digital agriculture, focusing on data, innovation, public and private sectors, with innovators and leaders from all of these fields and people who are actually not just talking the talk, but also doing the work at the same time. This is a conversation that we want to go far and wide. So if you're near social media, jump on it. Hashtag digital agriculture on World Bank Live. Welcome. Nice to see you. This entire show, this conversation, this program will be conducted in French or available in French, in English, and in Spanish. So let's talk about the way and the potential that digital agriculture can transform our very own health, our economies, and also our planet. There is so much to do. So we're going to get started with Mari Pangestu. She's the Managing Director of the Development Policy and Partnership at the World Bank. Mari, so great that you're starting us off. Over to you.
Thank you, Femi, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's great for me to open this event. I'm going to change the name a little bit. I'm going to call it Smart Agriculture, or how we can really use digital technology and tools to have a new frontier for the food system. Because as you know, the food system is central to any conversation that we have about the health of people, economies, and the planet. And it is also the source of nourishment and millions of jobs. So the food system is at the heart of the development agenda, if you like. But in its current form, the food system is far from achieving even its most basic goal of feeding everyone every day a healthy and sustainable diet. Almost 700 million people went hungry in 2019, and FAO forecasts indicate that the COVID-19 economic consequences could have pushed around 130 million more people into hunger. And the way the food is produced and consumed is associated with undernutrition, foodborne illnesses, and diet-related diseases. The agri-food system also puts a huge stress on the environment. Agriculture and land use change generates up to 29% of total greenhouse gas emissions and stretch our natural resources. And 1/3 of all food produced globally is lost or wasted, which puts further stress on the environment. But important changes are underway. Farmers are choosing climate smart practices and increasing resilience, improving yields and lowering greenhouse gas. Businesses are innovating to reduce food loss, and governments are aligning public support policies with their development goals. At the same time, digital technology is exploding. Around 4.6 billion people use the internet, 5.2 billion people own mobile phones. By 2018, millions of objects embedded with technology, such as farming equipment, were connected to the internet. So today we're asking the question, how can we harness technology's potential to transform the food system? The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted how technology accelerates transformation. As countries locked down, health pivoted to telehealth solutions, education was provided through online channels, and food services were delivered through digital solutions. So I think the pandemic has underlined that it's vital for everyone to have access to reliable and resilient digital infrastructure. Sustaining an inclusive digital revolution will require policies that protect data, advance digital connectivity, and support innovation ecosystems. Experience shows that the tech revolution can help countries also build a food system that is efficient, sustainable, and equitable. Here are a few examples. In Kenya, the World Bank is supporting a digital platform for farmers to access markets and climate smart advisory services. This platform will ultimately help 1 million farmers to boost their incomes and become more climate smart. Kenya is also home to Twiga, an IFC-supported mobile platform that sells produce. Twiga gives farmers access to fair pricing and boosts local food security. It's a logistics system that has enabled Twiga to significantly cut food loss. In India, the World Bank has supported programs to help women farmers sell produce through online markets and access digital financial services. Very important in this pandemic. As a result, digital technologies have delivered 600 million in financing to around 30 million rural women since the COVID-19 pandemic started. So digital agriculture can improve every part of the food system and create better links between the world's 570 million farms and 8 billion consumers. The agriculture and food sector are on the brink of transformation made possible by technology. Today, we are launching a new World Bank report, What's Cooking? Digital Transformation of the Agri-Food System, which is the roadmap for turning technology's possibilities into better outcomes for the food system. Working together, I believe we can really unleash the potential of smart and digital agriculture. We can steer the food systems to deliver healthy people, healthy planet, and healthy economies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mari. Now, you may recall that Mari mentioned a brand new report that is out today. We are joined by the report's author, Katharina Schroeder. Katharina, congratulations. I have seen the report on Amazon.com. I haven't been able to get my hands on it yet, but that's okay because you're going to give us a preview. Katharina, over to you.
Thank you so much. Hello. So digital technologies offer a promise to transform the agri-food system in the ways not previously seen, by drastically lowering information asymmetries and transaction costs that plague the system. And this is made possible by the ability to collect and analyze massive amounts of machine-readable data about practically every aspect of the agri-food value chain, as well as by the emergence of digital platforms that disrupt the existing business models and market access. So in this context, it is very important to understand what needs to be done to put digital technologies to work for this transformation and ensure that its outcomes are both equitable and sustainable. In our report, titled What's Cooking? Digital Transformation of Agri-Food System, we aim to support this goal with its three main contributions. First one is that we offer an economic analysis framework to examine the pathways through which digital technologies transform the agri-food system and result in more efficient, equitable, and environmentally sustainable outcomes. Second, we outline public policies and investments that allow to maximize the positive impacts of digital technologies while minimizing its risks. Finally, the third contribution is an assessment tool that allows for a more systematic assessment of capabilities and constraints that might exist in a country to leverage digital technologies. The report comes at an important time. The contrast we've seen between the abundance of food on farms and shortage of food in the stores during COVID-19 lockdowns brought to light pervasive inefficiencies that exist in the agri-food system. Yet at the same time, pandemic also brought an opportunity to build the agri-food system back better and put it on a more sustainable pathway. With the proper enabling environment and safeguards, digital technologies can help do just that. In the following animation, we offer some additional highlights on the ideas and issues discussed in the report.
Our global agri-food system sustains the world's ever-growing population, creates millions of jobs, and is critical in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. But the global agri-food system is not fit for purpose and stresses the environment by generating up to 29% of greenhouse gases. And while there is an overabundance of food, 820 million people are undernourished worldwide. This is due to the global agri-food system being held back, partly by transaction costs and information asymmetries, which prevent profitable transactions. The agri-food system is complex, and it takes dozens of stakeholders and transactions to bring food from farmers to consumers. Transaction costs are incurred by business partners to find each other, determine sales conditions such as volumes, quality, and negotiating prices and return policies. Because of information asymmetries, which occur when one stakeholder has more or better information than another, traders and consumers cannot tell whether a product is high quality or meets their environmental or social standards. This costs the farmer profits, drives them to choose quantity over quality, often at the expense of the environment, and limits consumers' product choices. But through digital technologies and mass access to data, the world's agri-food system can overcome these obstacles and deliver healthy people, a healthy planet, and healthy economies. The World Bank is a trusted partner in helping countries' agri-food systems navigate the digital revolution. Our new report provides insights into the potential of leveraging digital technologies to transform the agri-food system. Digital agriculture can create societal gains with the 3 E's: economic efficiency, through farmers being able to access multiple markets and lower costs through improved price discovery, buyer-selling matching, improved traceability, and quality control. Equity, through the inclusion of smallholder farms and marginalized populations. And environmental sustainability, through reducing food waste, better resource management, and rewarding environmentally friendly practices. Creation of and access to data allows new ways to evaluate small-scale farmers and agribusinesses' creditworthiness, improve their access to rural finance, and allows the design of affordable insurance products. Digital technologies also allow efficient government policy designs, policy implementation, and environmental outcomes monitoring. These benefits are great, but digital agriculture also has risks, like a digital divide. Many people still can't access technology or sufficient internet and don't know how to use it. The second risk is data governance. Farmers' business and personal information can be exposed, tempting misuse. Lastly, there's the risk of limited competition. There are concerns that digital markets will increase market power and filter profits to a few digital technology providers. How do we ensure the agri-food system benefits from digital technology? First, governments need to increase access to digital and physical infrastructure for data and technology use throughout the food system. Second, policies need to support innovative ecosystems for digital agriculture through open data sets, digital platforms, digital entrepreneurship, digital payment systems, and digital skills. Equally critical is ensuring a competitive environment for digital services providers. We also need policies that protect data use and sharing against misuse, and make sure the agriculture policies maximize digital agriculture's potential for environmental sustainability. Through the digital transformation and with the right policies, the food system can deliver healthy people, a healthy planet, and healthy economies.
The World Bank partners with public and private sectors and a whole range of stakeholders who are interested in transforming agriculture using digi-agri technologies, particularly in developing countries. So let's take a look now at the opportunities in the private sector when it comes to agri-food and technology. So coming up, you're about to have the pleasure of being and seeing a panel moderated by the Senior Director of Disruptive Technologies at the IFC. He is standing by. But first, we are going to go to the group CEO, the Executive Director, you know he's important, and the co-founder of Olam. He has a couple of questions for us.
How do we really go and transform the food and agricultural system to become a more sustainable one? And what is the role of digital and digital technologies in ushering in this transformation? So the first thing that we need to do is to provide radical transparency across the whole agricultural supply chain, starting with farmers and ending up at the consumer. And that means because we have 550 smallholder farming households in many countries, we need strong digital technologies to be able to provide that radical transparency. And in this context, Olam launched a sustainability platform and offering called AtSource, where we provide supply chain data, insights, measurement of impact, generating actions that are required to reduce the intensity, and also how to engage with stakeholders and the narratives that are required to show this radical transparency. Secondly, we want to really transform the livelihoods of farmers. And if you don't transform the livelihoods of farmers, the agricultural production system is at stake. So how can we do that? First is to have technology at the farm gate to be able to collect the information and data on all smallholder farmers. So we have developed the Olam Farmer Information System, where we collect information on the farmers in terms of his household size and the number of people who are going to school in his household, and his agricultural practices, his yields, his costs, and so that we can use that data to help him improve his productivity and to improve his prosperity. The third is that we have tried to develop a farmer services platform application, and this came home to us very sharply during the global pandemic, when we could not access the farmers using our army of field agents and extension services officers as a result of the lockdowns and the restriction measures. And therefore, we came up with a digital tool to provide the farmer very personalized, contextualized, next best actions that he can take on the farm by building an agronomy nudge brain that is based on machine learning that can provide him very contextualized and personalized information on how he can improve his farming practices and therefore catalyze his livelihoods.
Thank you, Femi. Pleased to announce today's panel discussion on the use of disruptive technologies and digital business models in the agri-food sector. Pleased to introduce my two panelists for today's discussion. First, Lori Hanover, Senior Vice President, Chief Financial Officer of Netafim. She's been in that role for 8 years, and she's also leader of Netafim's Global Community Irrigation Initiative. Netafim, for you that don't know it, is a global leader in precision agriculture irrigation systems. Second, I'd like to introduce Thiro Nagarajan, co-founder and CEO of NinjaCart, India's largest full-stack tech-based fresh produce supply chain business. It's great to have panelists that are focused on both sides of the agri-value chain. Lori focuses on precision agriculture in terms of the input side, and Thiro focused on maximizing food security and availability on the output side. You know, agri-tech has been on an explosive trajectory over the past 24 months. It's a little late to the technology game, but it's really catching up and catching steam as more businesses have been formed to disrupt what has historically been a fairly traditional industry. Ag-tech is now driving radical innovations that are helping to improve productivity, solve large climate challenges, enhance food supply chain efficiency, and provide smallholder farmers with actually access to finance for all of their inputs. And it's doing this all while improving resiliency of the global food production ecosystem. So now I'd like to invite my panelists, and I'll start with Lori to answer a question. So my first question, how do respected businesses look at embedding data, science, and other digital technologies into your operations? And how have those tech-based solutions impact producers, consumers, and other participants in the supply chain? Lori?
Thank you, Bill. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what it is that we do so that we can frame the answer properly. So as you mentioned, we have pioneered drip irrigation technology, which enables farmers essentially to grow more with less. Less water, less fertilizer, less crop protection, more quality, more output, resilience to climate change, more sustainable, traceable, basically precision ag to do more output with less input. So if we take that and we say, how can we use data and digital in our technology? What we see is that it allows us to provide smart agronomic and operational decision-making to the farmers in real time. And this is particularly important if we want to talk about how we're going to solve the various issues that the world is confronting. So what we do is we have now developed an open platform that measures or monitors the field, that analyzes various data sources, and then controls the operation, meaning it's going to give real-time, valuable decision-making options to the grower. So if we just delve into that for 1 second. So we have earth sensors, and we have, let's call them non-earth sensors. So we're bringing various forms of data from the ground, and we're bringing data from weather or other cloud-based information sources. We're integrating that together with the 55 years of agronomic knowledge that Netafim agronomists have accumulated, which we've been able to digitize. And so now we have, let's call it a brain, that is taking all types of data forms, basing it on various crop models that we have developed over time, and now being able to deploy it digitally in real time to the farmer in a very simple manner through his phone that says, irrigate now, don't irrigate now, wait, do this, do that. So you enable growers who do not have this knowledge and expertise to find it very simple and easy to now make the right types of decisions to achieve much more output from their fields. We envision that going forward, we can add AI and machine learning to even improve this further. And it's also collecting a lot of data. And that data can be used for various reasons. It can be used for helping make more predictive models for climate insurance, for example. So we're able to capture data from all around the environment on the ground and deploy it in such a way that we get better decisions and more precise decisions in a very simple and easy to operate manner. You asked about other areas in the chain. Well, we've also deployed digital tools to enhance our learning or training of growers, to give them online information and feedback about how to better grow their crops, what needs to be the considerations, and how they can better use the resources at their disposal to get a better and more quality, sustainable product. So our focus as we go forward is also to enable our channel partners and our growers to make smarter decisions and have ready access to the technology and data that we have accumulated over time and will continue to accumulate as we move forward.
Thank you, Lori. It's fascinating that your business, started in Israel where water is scarce, and so maximizing data.
Not anymore.
is key to that. Tira, same question to you. How do you think about data science and technology and completely redoing the supply chain or the distribution chain, if you will, of fruits and vegetables in a country the size of India?
Yeah. So the biggest problem India faces is fruits and vegetables, which is entirely a perishable item, is transported in a non-temperature controlled supply chain. Right? That is one of the key issues because of which timely movement of items from the farmland to the demand markets is going to be very, very crucial. And because of which a farmer loses out a lot of things because he doesn't know what is the right price he should expect. Because if he has to figure out how to explore the right price, maybe the time will pass and the item will perish. So he makes decisions in a hurry. Right, so he doesn't know what is the right price, what is the right demand center to send his items to. Okay, what is going to be the supply demand in a demand market because of which what price he'll be able to fetch. He has no information whatsoever. It's like shooting in the dark for the farmer. Right, he produces something. Once the harvest is done, he has to somehow figure out a middleman who can take his produce to the demand center, whichever demand center is possible for him. Right, and also. This is the problem with the farmer, but the other biggest problem the ecosystem faces is in a market and a demand market. The demand market has no clue about what is going to be the supply that is going to hit the market on that particular day. For example, let's say a city like Bangalore, let's say for example that it can consume 20 trucks of onions, just an example. Suddenly, if there is a 21st truck that lands in Bangalore, on one particular day, the onion prices crashes in the sense that there are no takers for one truck, and that guy starts selling low, everyone starts selling low. Finally, like onion, let's say if it's at 20 rupees, suddenly it will drop to 15 rupees, right? So there is no visibility of a supply that is going to come into a market. So the biggest problem that this sector faces is timely supply demand of data and pricing data for the farmers. Also it's not available for the demand markets, also not available, because and also like for logistics planning also it's very difficult, because you don't know tomorrow which farmer is going to produce what and what kind of truck is needed. Sometimes the farmer produces and there is no trucks available to transport it from the farmland to maybe any other demand points, and the farmer has to just leave the item without finding a right partner, and maybe he takes it next day where the item would have the value of the item deteriorates, right? Because it is a perishable. So these are some of the huge challenges a farmer who grows vegetables and fruits faces in India, right? And what we trying to solve is we try to get these farmers onto a platform where they expose us a visibility into their harvest calendar. For example, we precisely track to in our farmer network who is going to harvest what at what point of time. That plays a very crucial role for us to even sort of do a planning, saying okay, tomorrow this village I can get this much of SKU, and I can decide which demand markets I should take it to, right? And then I can also figure out what is the right demand market for the farmer. That's also crucial, right? Because I can for every nearby every farmer there could be 2-3 demand markets which are possible, and then I decide where to take it to. So for all of this, right? For all of this matching supply and demand, figuring out how do we do logistics, optimizing for logistics, for all of that we need to map out source data, demand data, and also plan for the logistics. This is only possible by having a tech-enabled data platform, right? For example, we need data collection on the farmer's end, on what is he growing, when he's going to harvest, etc. We need to collect data on the demand side. What are the going prices in different markets? How many customers we have whom we can sell it to? Right, what will be the demand for the next day? So if you see NinjaCart, we predict farmer harvest, we predict customers demand on a daily basis, and we keep matching it and keep optimizing for the logistics and also for the operations, because we had to ensure that all these items reach at the store in less than 12 hours, so that the storekeeper has more shelf life to sell this, because there is no temperature control anywhere, right? So these are some of the hard problems which we are trying to solve through data and tech. And like currently it's like a farmer typically realizes only like 20-30% of what a retailer pays, and we are trying to improve that significantly.
Thank you, Tira. It's really interesting that both of you guys are solving inefficiencies while having a major climate benefit at the same time in terms of the full agri-food chain. Second question, just really quick, Tira, why don't you kick us off just in a minute or so? You know, this is the private sector panel of the World Bank public sector dialogue on the importance of digitization of the agriculture sector. What do you think the challenges are rolling out new technologies and the adoption of those, both from the standpoints in your business, but really from an enabling government policy, including those, you know, those policies in India, for example, in your business that could hurt or help your business grow?
So in terms of adoption of technology, right, building trust among the farmers is going to be the very crucial thing for even tech adoption. Though when we see the growth of growth of smartphone penetration in India with farmers over the last 4 years, I believe it has gone up from 30% to somewhere around 70%. That's what we largely see. Let's say farmers who work with NinjaCart, initially when we had an app, only 20% of the farmers used to adopt that, but right now like we see like a 60-70% adoption, and we see farmers able to access any kind of technology solution. Let's say be it advisory, be it what is it, the farm management tools, or for that matter people on the output interacting with people, right? So technological adoption has rapidly scaled up because of smartphone penetration and cheap availability of data. right? India, I think, has leapfrogged in terms of data, right? So access to data has become like it's like water. We need to have access to data, right? So that is the thing. In terms of government policies, the government has adopted a lot of pro farmer policies, particularly in vegetables and fruits, which has enabled companies like NinjaCard to operate. For example, vegetables and fruits in India, in most of the states, is like they allow anyone to go buy directly from a farmer and sell it to anyone. So in that way, the government has sort of deregulated in a lot of states, and there is a lot of activity from the government side to proactively create a farmer producer organizations, self-help groups among farmers, helping them with financing, helping them with support on inputs, how do you manage the farms and how do you improve their productivity, etc. There is a huge subsidy on drip irrigation that happens to all the farmers, and also for greenhouse cultivation. There's a lot of subsidies that are given. So the government is promoting a lot of good practices, and also training the farmers a lot on getting better produce. And I think as it continues and digital adoption keep increasing, I think a lot of farmers are going to come up and are going to realize the fruit of all the effort that is happening in the sector.
Thank you. Lori, briefly, how about you with respect to Netafim? What are the enabling policies that would be helpful?
Sure, I'll pick up where my colleague mentioned about the situation in India, which is really ideal when you think about it. So the first problem that we see is how do you bring this technology to mass market? How do you bring it to a population that is spread out, small farmers who don't have the wherewithal and probably are technologically less savvy? And what we have here is we've done actually in India is the concept of community irrigation / agriculture, where you take 20,000 farmers in multiple villages and you provide the infrastructure, both the irrigation infrastructure, but as well as the digital infrastructure to enable them to access the benefit of this technology. The second challenge that we see is the integration of systems. There are a lot of technologies on farm, but the challenge will be how does one integrate them to create a whole lake of actionable information that can help to better improve the farm output, sustainability, traceability, and create a seamless integration of these. So I would say that these are the two. And if we could make progress in the accessibility to digital, as well as the accessibility to the fundamentals of the technology, in our case, irrigation, that would be very helpful.
Thank you. True Internet of Things. I see a partnership potentially brewing between Netafim and NinjaCart, where you guys could partner together to improve output and transparency and reduce food waste in India. I want to thank you, Lori, and thank you, Tiro, for your time today. You know, the private sector broadly, including new ag tech business models and more established players, becoming more digital, partnered with the investment community, have a key role to play in piloting and rolling out disruptive technologies and new business models. And IFC likes to partner with people like you to provide input finance to those farmers, or working capital support, or ability to forward, precision Internet of Things infrastructure. IFC and our brothers and sisters at the World Bank are keen to partner with the private sector to support and help drive this important digital transformation across the entire value chain in our key markets within the poorer countries on the planet. So thank you again. Now I'd like to introduce a short video of Peter Njonjo, founder and CEO of Twiga Foods in Kenya, who saw an opportunity to disrupt the supply chain of fruits and vegetables in East Africa, similar to what Tiro was able to do in India. We at the IFC are proud to be investors in Twiga and proud to be lenders to their farmers with access to finance to purchase inputs. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter Njonjo. I'm CEO and co-founder of Twiga Foods. We're a B2B e-commerce business that's really centered around building efficiency across the food supply chain. What we do is that we leverage technology to aggregate demand of informal retail. across Africa, most of 70 to 80% of retail is fragmented, where you have thousands and millions of retailers scattered around the continent. And what we do is that we leverage technology to aggregate that demand and really start building an efficient supply chain that allows us to then re-engineer the cost of food and other commodities. When I look at, for example, what we're able to do now is that with the aggregated demand, we're able now to actually engage farmers and have offtake agreements, things that were not possible in the past. And the reason why this is a very, very big issue is because we're seeing an increased level of urbanization across Africa, where there's a lot of inefficiency in food production, and that's leading to a very, very significant amount of disposable income being spent on food. Just for context, that number is about 55% across major urbans on the continent. And we feel that, with technology, we can reduce that number significantly. And of course, how then this leverages data in streamlining the whole supply chain. And just for context, now we have visibility of what's happening in retail. And by using that information to streamline food production, it means that now we're starting to engage commercial farmers who are focused on productivity, who are focused on traceability, and focused on food safety. And with that level of efficiency, we're now able to bring in the level of efficiency that exists in the export-oriented agricultural sector across the continent, and leveraging that in getting the domestic food sector also being as efficient. And I think for us, this is a problem that we see that we can solve across the continent. When I look at major urbans across West Africa, Central Africa, this is a problem that is pretty much replicated across these markets. And for us as Trigger Foods, we see this as our next phase of expansion, where this year we will start working in West Africa, and hopefully over the next couple of years, we will be in most of the major urbans across Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you.
And thank you, Peter. We move on to our next panel. I am in awe of the speakers on this panel. I am so humble. They're so smart and so brilliantly educated and so experienced. I feel like I should leave the room and just let them get on with it. Hello, Ranveer. Hello, Rikin. Hello, Jess. Hello, Buthena. Welcome. So good to see you. We're talking about data, and Jess said, can we get nerdy? Absolutely, it's mandatory. Jess, introduce yourself to our global audience. Tell them who you are and what you do.
Great, thanks for having me. My name is Jess Fonza. I'm a professor at Johns Hopkins University, and I co-lead the Food Systems Dashboard.
Nice to see you. We're looking forward to hearing about that in just a moment. Rikin, welcome. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Thanks. I'm Rikin Gandhi, co-founder of Digital Green, where we use peer-to-peer videos to improve extension systems, and are also developing governance mechanisms for sharing data through an initiative called FarmStack.
Fantastic. These are great projects, right? Ranveer, welcome to the conversation. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ranveer Chandra. I am the CTO for Agriculture and Food at Microsoft. I started the FarmBeats project, which is about bringing data and artificial intelligence to agriculture.
Welcome. And finally, Buthena, nice to see you. Tell everybody who you are and your job title. What do you do?
Hi, Buthena Gormazi. I'm Director for Digital Development in the World Bank. So we work with governments to make sure they have the foundation for digital development. And then we work with sectors to make sure that these opportunities in digital translate into actual results in different sectors.
So I'm going to start with a 101 question, and it's an instant response, not a long response panel, but the importance of data in agriculture. What example would you give me? Rikin, you start.
I would say farmers have data in their own minds about how they plan what crops and livestock to be producing, and they integrate in their minds weather, soil information to be able to make sense of it, to make the best decisions that they can.
Ranveer,
Yeah, and there is,
data
in
and
addition to what
agriculture. Go
Rikin
ahead.
said, yeah, in addition to what Rikin said, there is data from the farm that that sensors can collect, that drones can collect, satellites are collecting. This is data that can complement a farmer's knowledge. So the knowledge that Rikin talked about can be complemented with data and artificial intelligence to create insights. Like, for example, telling a farmer when to plant, when to harvest, when to water, when to sell a crop, when to harvest it. All of that information is data that, if captured and shared and used with AI, can unlock a lot of benefits in digital agriculture for the growers.
Jess?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of data out there, and we, in the dashboard, we collect data across the entire food systems, with agriculture being one piece of it. So there's a lot of data, but it's putting it in one place, putting it on accessible platforms that users will use. So one of the big challenges we have is, we can talk about challenges around data and the quality of data, but it's accessing that data. How do you pull it together in one place that's easy to use and a visual interface? That's the challenge, but the opportunity at the same time.
Buthena?
Well, I think about big data. I think about data analytics. I think about using cell phone crowdsourced information, different types of data that are all important to get insights. Insights that can inform actions for better decision making, for better actions, and it's a deep sector because there is so much wealth of data out there. The challenge and the issue is, how do we use it? How do we harness it? How do we protect it? How do we make sure it gets to the best use?
I am thinking right now about the title of our session, Enabling More Equitable Access to Data, Clear Data Governance. That was another phrase that jumped out at me. And supportive of e-agriculture strategies. Those were the buzzwords that really leapt out at me. This idea about equitable access, Rikin. Tell me what you're doing and how that fits in to that idea.
So there's two main things. One is to use peer-to-peer videos that are buy-in for farmers to share best practices with one another. And the second is to say that a lot of the data that organizations, including us and our government partners, collect about and for farmers is mostly siloed and essentially stored by our individual selves and for our own organizational benefits, without little return for the farmers themselves to lay claim to their data, to be able to monetize their data. And that's what we're trying to work on with FarmStack, is to enable farmers to maintain their own data wallet and set their own usage policies on, if I'm going to share my data with somebody else, I'm going to enforce the types of terms and conditions on top of it.
Ranveer, I see you nodding. Articulate the nod.
Yeah, and it goes that we're working with Rikin on this, is essentially how do you enable people to share data rather than bring in silos, and so that this data can be shared without sacrificing the privacy of the data. Some of this data it contains PII information. In the wrong hands, it can be used the wrong way. So how do you ensure that this data can be shared in an appropriate way? Because if this data is shared, as the other panelists mentioned as well, it can unlock a lot of new value. So some of the work we are doing is on enabling this secure sharing of data, creating a platform that can allow this sharing of data. Part of it is that. The other part is around, how do you add structure to the data? How do you make that data discoverable in the first place? So those are some of the things we are working on at Microsoft to enable this sharing of data, to build that kind of a platform that Rikin mentioned.
You're raising good questions. I'm hearing a lot of hows. Do you then have, this is how we do it then?
Yeah, these are some of the ways in which we can make it happen. That is, you need secure ways of sharing data, ways to add structure to data, to semi-structured data, because a lot of data could just be hand notes that people have written. They are not in a particular format. So then how do you add structure to the data? How do you make this data discoverable? What data exists where with which grower? How do you create this repository? So these are all all the hows of how you'll enable this kind of a data platform. But one of the problems that Ricken mentioned is, without these, the problems right now are, well, this data is very siloed. It exists at the growers, at different farmer organizations. And unless you bring all of this data together, you won't unlock the values of the benefits of artificial intelligence. All these things that we talk about won't come to agriculture unless we start bringing them all together.
Just can you take us in a little deeper into the food systems dashboard?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the questions being and some of the conversation we're having around this equity, we really saw this a lot with the development of the food systems dashboard, and that we tried to pull together indicators across the entire food system. So this is starting with agriculture, but all the way to diets. And we really struggled around access issues. Private sector, food industry holds a lot of data, particularly around behavior change. What drives decision-making around diet choices? What drives decision-making about what farmers are going to plant or harvest? And private sector has a lot of that data, but they won't release that, or it's behind a paywall. So we really struggle with access issues. We also struggle. We try to have data across every country in the world. And so, of course, places like the United States has a lot of data. USDA holds a lot of data, but other countries have very outdated data or don't have any data. So there's real inequities in the geographical coverage of data as well. So we tried to pull that together as much as possible to allow for policymakers to not work in the dark when thinking about food systems. But we're faced with some of these access issues, equity issues around geographic coverage. So
do you have conversations with the private sector about access to data? Or is that just, that's not going to happen? It's not realistic. Or do they just like, you're knocking on the door and they're like, bye?
It's hard because it's it's proprietary, and when they release that data, they're releasing it to their potential competitors. So they have a lot of data on consumer behavior that is important for their branding. And what's the incentive for them to release that data to a global access, open access dashboard? It's hard to sell that. Yeah.
Yes, there's also that risk that this contains sensitive information. How do you share this data without making sure that the data is not compromised? It doesn't fall in the hands of wrong people. Being from the private sector, I'm just representing another viewpoint.
Ranveer, I forgot for a moment.
We can't say anything bad.
Ranveer, you're a very nice private sector person. Ricken, go ahead.
One related question. I mean, Ranveer or Jess, I think like for the type of aggregate data, right, that you might use on a dashboard or for artificial intelligence types of purposes, right? There's power of obviously bringing this data together. But then, as you also said, there's also this individual, perhaps like private or proprietary information for the individual farmer, right? How do you sort of think about bringing those two levels of aggregate data and an individual's own data sort of together while still having equity and ability for governance across those two very different types of data?
That is a fantastic question. Do you have a fantastic answer?
I don't.
I could start, and Jess, you should add to this, but you and I are talking quite a bit about this in like, how do you get this data shared without compromising without compromising privacy of the whoever owns that data? And I think some of it would have to come down to consortiums and nonprofits and people coming together to define the use cases and defining the standards as to what data needs to be shared, and making sure you have some guarantees around it. That, you know what, if you share this aggregate data, you're not leaking any individual data in the process. And for the purpose it is, I think that's what's going to define what needs to be shared. For example, for the food systems dashboard that Jess is developing of FarmStack, what is that data? What is the data model? What is the aggregation at a level where you can't extract individual information, but there is still sufficient information for FarmStack or the food systems dashboard or any such other system to make use of that data. So I think this kind of a consortium of standard is needed. Some sort of an open source model would be good, but having people work behind the scenes to have some proofs so that it's not just on best effort or people just say, but you can prove it that, you know what, you're not sacrificing an individual's privacy by sharing this aggregate data. I think that kind of research R&D is needed.
Let me just
Can
bring
I
in
also
Buthena here,
mention?
Buthena, because
Yes, thank you. I
go
wanted to
ahead. Yes,
mention also.
I was thinking about you, and you were thinking about jumping in. So we're aligned. Go ahead,
Exactly. Thank you
Buthena.
so much. No, I wanted to highlight the importance of the other elements of the ecosystem. Uh, Elements around the overall policy and regulatory environment around using data, but also the issues around skills, the issues around entrepreneurship. And, the approach that we're using in the bank is to think about, data empowerment within the broader framework around digital transformation. So, from having access to connectivity, to the skills, to the entrepreneurship, to the ability to use financial inclusion. And I think these elements are important ones regardless of the sector. Agriculture, I think, is a sector par excellence, where when these foundations together work, we see the impact on the farmers and on the whole food system. So a very good sector where working closely between public and private, putting the foundations and seeing the imagination that young entrepreneurs are having in this sector. It's amazing.
Thank you, Buthena. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Ranveer. And thank you, Rikin. It just goes to show public and private can work so beautifully together, as they just did in this panel. Thank you, panel. Appreciate you. And now we're going to look at innovation. Let me give you a little example of what I mean. Take a look at this.
I'm Simone. I'm the founder and CEO of Plantix. Plantix is a digital crop doctor for farmers. It's a smartphone app, actually the most downloaded app for small-scale farmers worldwide with more than 15 million downloads. We help farmers to identify crop diseases, pest attacks, nutrient deficiencies. The farmer just need to take an image of the plant with their smartphone, and our app gives the result within seconds. How? We use AI, or more technically machine learning, to train digital plant experts. The beauty of digital experts, they are available at any time, wherever you need them. They can talk to thousands or millions of farmers at the same time. They are not only experts for 1 or 2 crops, but for 60 crops, and are more accurate than human experts. And they become more intelligent over time, since it's a self-enforcing system. With every image we get, the better becomes the digital experts. And on top of all these images we get, we understand how plant diseases are spreading across the countries, and we understand what farmers are growing. So that's data which is normally produced when people go into the village and do surveys. But by simply using our service, farmers produce this information digital and in real time. However, it's also a challenge to integrate ICT tools into farming, as for many farmers, it's the first time they use digital technology. You have to design it that it is accessible for farmers and runs on the often cheap and older phones they predominantly use. So in order to be successful, that needs to be easy to use, intuitive, as many farmers used phones only for calling or WhatsApp before. But if you manage this, you can create something really powerful. So at Plantix, we deeply believe that technology is key to a more sustainable agriculture. Only if we find a scalable solution to support farmers, we can have an impact. Since, we talk about more than 500 million farms, which means at least 1 billion people working in agriculture. Mark Andreessen once said, software is eating the world. However, we say with Plantix, we help to feed the world.
The founder and CEO of Plantix, they're sharing some statistics about how many people work in agriculture. I'm going to just make a connection here between how many people work in agriculture and how many people are connected online. So if we look worldwide, around about 4 billion people have access to the internet. 5 billion people have mobile phones. You put those stats together and you're looking at digital agriculture and technology, what potential there is for innovation. You're really going to like our next panel. They have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, because when you decide to say yes to a panel about innovation, you have to deliver. Hello, panel. Thank you for being here. I'm going to say hello to Christine and Mariana and Simon. Mariana, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone, I'm Mariana Vasconcelos and co-founder and CEO at AgroSmart. We are a leading digital agriculture platform in Latin America. We monitor crops with sensors, satellite imagery, and we support decision-making in the fields for the farmer and for the whole supply chain to make it more productive and climate resilient.
Christine, tell everybody who you are. What do you do?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Gould. I am the founder and CEO of Thought for Food. I'm here in Switzerland, but we are a global organization that is set up to equip the world's largest generations, which are millennials and Gen Zs, to solve the prevailing challenges facing our food systems by bringing their digital savviness, their entrepreneurial spirit, and their purpose-driven mindset to the fore. It's great to be here.
Good to have you. Simon, what got you the seat at the table? Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simon Winter. I'm the Executive Director for the Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture. And we help create a bright future for smallholder farmers who are currently not well connected to markets, not well connected or using modern technologies. And so innovation is key to us, and the opportunities that can be created through digital technologies to accelerate and scale up the progress of other types of innovations that we're trying to also bring is massive, as you're saying, Femi. Great to be here.
Good to have you, panel. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. I want to start with something very quickly, very briefly, which is in the digital agriculture tech field. Name one innovation that you love, that sticks with you, that you always talk about. Just one to get us started so we know what you like. It can be from your own organization, your own company. I will not hold that against you. Simon, you start.
So from my side, I think the innovation that we're helping, which I think can be transformational, is something we call the eFarmers Hub. And this is a business-in-a-box tool for young agricultural entrepreneurs who want to start businesses to serve their communities, whether it's with inputs or aggregation for output markets or financial services or other things that their community members need. And this technology then enables them to connect to the farmers on the one hand and connect to suppliers or customers and so on the other hand. And it can be, I think, transformational as we get it scaled up.
Christine, when you're thinking about innovation in the digi-agri field, what stands out for you? Give us an example.
Sure. I mean, I could definitely say things like machine learning, big data, blockchain. But to be honest, I think the most game-changing innovation is the power of social media platforms if we use them in the right way. We're able to connect our global community of innovators and entrepreneurs to get together, to work together and collaborate to accelerate their innovation efforts no matter where they are in the world. And they're actually sharing a lot of ideas and best practices with each other to reduce duplicative efforts and actually accelerate the speed at which they're able to achieve impact. So the community platforms that digital allows has been truly game-changing for fostering more innovation and better, more efficient innovation.
Mariana, go ahead.
Well, I don't think there is one solution fit all. We need to work with a bunch of technologies to solve a problem. So I would actually recommend that we entrepreneurs in general fall in love with the problem and be excited about the problem rather than with the solution itself, right? But I would think that one of the things that they have in common, all of the technologies, is data. So I'm obsessed of data and how data science can help us overcome food system challenges.
You know what's eating away at me is this idea of a digital divide, the difference between access and connectivity in some parts of the world and in other parts of the world. When we're talking about, for instance, Simon, smallholder farmers, how do they get onto this DigiAgri track? How are you doing that at Syngenta?
So it's important to realize that not every smallholder is the same. We're talking about segments that go all the way from people who are living, in refugee camps, basically, who are, not even necessarily farming their own land, maybe only very temporarily based where they are, all the way through to people who are farming small fruit and vegetable farms on the peripheries of cities, who are earning thousands and thousands of dollars a year of profit from their farms. So, but the vast majority of small farms in the developing world are poorer, they're less well connected, the farmers themselves are aging, and they're less, let's say, digitally savvy, and they don't have the tools in terms of the infrastructure or the smartphones to be able to directly connect. And that's why the agri-entrepreneurs that we support in communities can become then transformational change agents, because it's very important, if you're just getting messages by SMS or over a feature phone, to have some complementarity then from somebody who's in your community, who is connected digitally, who can then really bring markets and innovations, in a transformational way into those communities. So you have to understand the local context. You have to find the digital champions within those communities. Not everybody in those communities needs to be digitally connected.
Kristen, go ahead. You're nodding. Articulate the
Yeah,
nod.
I would love to jump in here because the digital divide is real and it's serious. We have 4 billion people, as you said, who are connected to the internet out of 7 billion. So there's a large, number of people who still have the chance to get online. But what I get kind of motivated by and inspired by in my work is the fact that, young people around the world, everywhere, are finding creative solutions to help bridge this digital divide. There's a lot of young people who've left the farms, right? This is maybe a problem or an opportunity. They left the farms to, go to cities. They are digitally savvy and connected, and they see the power that happens when you can connect, like I mentioned earlier, into communities of innovators. And then what they're doing, and Mariana, I think, is a great example of this, and there's a couple of other people we've worked with in our program, they've gone back to the farm and trained their parents and other farmers about the possibilities that digital connection can bring. And they've done this not only through the internet, but also through mobile connectivity with simple SMS type interactions, radio connections, etc. But that power of bringing data and information to farmers is being solved in a lot of places by young people. And we've even had people, reach really remote groups like indigenous populations, etc., to bring also their information back into our platforms. So we're also learning from traditional knowledge, right? And can bring that into technology-based solutions. So the bridge that I see young people playing in bridging that digital divide is really interesting and exciting. And we're doing a lot of work at the moment in my organization to help do more of that.
Mariana, I want to be very candid from your perspective, and that is the barriers for innovators. If you were going to be very direct, very candid, very honest, the barriers and then how you've seen them being overcome. Go ahead, Mariana.
Well, I agree with Christine that many times the barriers are opportunities. So in our case, I come from a farming family and we use technology to bridge the two worlds. And I think technology has an important role in succession. As before, no one wants to stay in the field, and now that we can have the digital element, it becomes attractive again to youth to engage and try to solve agriculture problems. So in our case, specifically, infrastructure and connectivity is a problem. In Brazil, Latin American emerging countries, connectivity is very low in the fields, but we were able to create a platform where we would collect data from the hardware independently from pre-existing internet. And we understood that, and on top of that, we built our data solutions and so on. But in terms of barrier, there are some barriers, yes, we can overcome it, and we will continue to find creative solutions, but we do need support. And that's where I think the ecosystem plays an essential role. We participate in the Thought for Food program. Those kinds of initiatives are super important, so we can connect with other people and we can learn from and we can be introduced to opportunities. And I still think the market access is very expensive for startups. I think there's like a very hard to scale up way. When we look all of the agtechs around the world, it's hard to get to the mass markets, right? Like where do we go there? There's a lack of financing for the farmers to acquire technology. There is a lack of financing for startups. The capital available that are patient enough to wait that digital transformation journey is hard to find, especially in emerging countries. So I think those things has to be shared. We need more access to capital, and we need to split the cost on education, because actually changing the mindset of the farmer, like we're already solving some barriers in the technical side of the connectivity, but there's education level too. And that's where Syngenta Foundation, for example, has an important role on helping us to engage the smallholder farmers, unite them, educate them on what is important to look at and why they have to change, because otherwise it's only on working together that we were able to feed the world in the future and doing it in a sustainable way.
I am going to say a word, and I want you to instantly react when we're talking about digi-agriculture and accelerating innovation. Christine, partnerships.
Yay.
I like that one. Good answer. Simon, partnerships.
Essential. Because of what Mariana was saying about the importance of the ecosystem. There's one of the problems at the moment is there's too many startups trying to work this out on their own, and they're really struggling for all the reasons Mariana articulated, and yet the ecosystem is still weak and not really being brought well together.
Mariana, she's going to have the best answer. She's had the longest to think about it. Partnerships.
No, I do. And I think like agriculture is all about nature, and nature is a complex ecosystem. So we need like a strong ecosystem so we can navigate it, and we cannot do it alone. So for me, it's like the only way to survive and to grow.
If I'm an innovator in the digi-agri field, what encouragement would you give me in a sentence? Mariana.
Well, I think it depends on where you are, but I believe there's many innovators that are coming from farming families, and it's the chance we have to make a change. And that is very connected to our purpose, like to help to change our family, like economic activity, to help change our country economies and change the world. So I think agriculture has such an important role, and that's why like they address so many SDGs. Like it's one of the few industries that can actually affect and contribute to so many of the sustainable development goals, that we are actually able to start small, start local, and make a big change.
That was a long but powerful sentence. Christine, in a sentence, I'm an innovator, digi-agri tech field. What encouragement would you give me?
I think digital agriculture is a chance to, think outside of the box and to connect unexpected dots. There's all kinds of digital innovations in all kinds of sectors that we can bring together to create transformational solutions for food and agriculture. And it requires that, mindset that actually I see happens in digital natives, because they've been exposed to so many ideas and concepts through the internet. Think outside the box, collaborate, be open, and find those partnerships to bring it to life. And also, don't do everything yourself as a startup.
Oh, that's a good one. Simon, go ahead.
Yeah, I think be tenacious. I think that's the key. You're going to fail, but then try and fail quickly, learn quickly, use new agile kind of approaches to think about how to test things quickly, and then move on. But building on Christine's point, even if you fail and you try and pick yourself up, you don't have to do that on your own. There are plenty of other organizations that are really focused on this right now, and whether they're public sector, private sector, funds of different kinds, technical assistance organizations, there is a community out there. It may not be a well-defined ecosystem, but there are plenty of organizations around to help you.
Simon, Christine, Mariana, leaders in innovation, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Femi.
And now we go to the Ministry of Economy and Finance in the Republic of Korea. Welcome to the Deputy Minister for International Affairs, Mr. Tae-sik Yoon.
Greetings from Korea, everyone. Today, I'm very happy to share Korea's initiative for digital agriculture and its strong commitment to promoting digital innovation in agriculture globally. Last July, Korea announced a key national agenda called the Korean New Deal, containing two main pillars, the Digital New Deal and the Green New Deal, with the aim to transform Korea into a digital and green economy. The agriculture industry is one of the most important sectors for the Korean New Deal in that we can foster a sustainable future, develop new growth drivers, and ensure food security through digitalization of agriculture. In this context, Korea is pushing toward greater tech innovation in agriculture, focusing on three areas. First, smart farm. We are fully committed to expanding smart farms and modernizing farming facilities through R&D investment and the development of a new smart farm model. Second, smart leaders. Given the importance of nurturing talented young farmers to lead a digital agriculture era, the government is sparing no effort to provide updated education and training for future leaders. Third, big data ecosystem. We are now establishing a cloud-based data platform to enhance data utilization, thereby developing a big data ecosystem for smart agriculture. Korea is also actively engaged in supporting the global digital agriculture agenda in solid partnership with the World Bank. For instance, over the past 2 years, Korea has supported the regional flagship study, Scaling Up Disruptive Agriculture Technologies in Africa, through the Korea World Bank Partnership Facility. The study's findings currently serve as building blocks for active consultations with Kenya and Uganda. In addition, Korea has recently approved funding for green and digital technical cooperation projects in 23 countries through the Korea Green Growth Trust Fund. Through these pilots, we hope to share Korea's experience and contribute to furthering digital agriculture in those countries. Going forward, recognizing the enormous potential of digital agriculture, the Korean government will continue to expand the funding of the facilities in those areas at the World Bank and support tech innovation in agriculture around the world. Thank you.
My name is Professor Hamadi Boga. I'm the Principal Secretary in charge of Crops Development and Agricultural Research in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives in Kenya. We are implementing a transformational strategy in the Ministry of Agriculture, which seeks to transform the lives of 8.8 million smallholder farmers, which represent about 4.4 million households. Because of the challenges in the sector, we have prioritized digitization. So in our strategy, we have a pillar which is digitization of agriculture in Kenya. There are a number of initiatives that we have put to push our agricultural transformation to be supported by digital tools. Some of the tools that we have deployed is a big data platform, which is funded through the World Bank program, the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project. We have also changed our fertilizer subsidy program into a smart subsidy program, which is anchored on an e-voucher. This program is already running, impacting about 200,000 farmers who are farming various commodities, mostly smallholder farmers. And together with the World Bank, of course, we had an initiative of reaching 1 million farmers using digital tools, disruptive technologies. And this has meant linking agri-tech companies, startups with good ideas, linking them to counties. These are the sub-regional governments where they would be able to interact and solve specific problems. And Kenya is a leader in digitization. I think 25% of the digital solutions in the sector of agriculture come from Kenya when you look at the African landscape. And already just interacting with some of the developers, we have seen over 125 digital apps that have been developed to support farmers with one problem or the other. And so all this is anchored in our digitization of agriculture strategy, which we are running and implementing together with our development partners. Thank you very much.
we hit our final section and our final conversation, which is about the public sector. Fascinating how we've left it to the end of the program. Let's see what our panel have to say about that. Hello, Martine. Hello, Maximo. Good to see you. Martine, explain who you are. Introduce yourself to our global audience.
Hi, Femi. Very good to see you. Very pleased to be part of this panel. My name is Martien van Nieuwkoop. I'm the Global Director for Agriculture and Food at the World Bank. And in that capacity, I oversee the bank's engagement on this agenda.
Good to see you. And Maximo, welcome to the conversation. Introduce yourself to our global audience.
Hi, a pleasure to see you. My name is Maximo Torero. I am the Chief Economist of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
Gentlemen, I want you to finish the sentence. Our panel is called The Public Sector's Role in Maximizing Efficiency, Equity, and Sustainability of Digital Agriculture. If you could fill in the blank, what is the public sector's role? How would you finish that sentence, Martine?
Well, for me, there are about 500 million farmers in the world. I mean, many are smallholder farmers living in remote rural areas. So I think there's a very important role for the public sector to make sure that those 500 million farmers do not end up on the wrong side of the digital divide, and actually make sure, that conditions are in place. That those farmers can fully benefit from the huge potential of digital technologies has to offer.
Maximo, fill in that blank. The public sector role is?
No, the public sector role is to level the field so that we can get access and reduce the digital divide. The last thing you want is that digitalization will increase concentration and exclusion. What you want is a digitalization that will be inclusive and create a more competitive market so that you have better access to these technologies.
Gentlemen, you're very welcome to debate me, but I would like to propose that the private sector is way ahead of the public sector when it comes to DigiAgri. Martine?
Well, I think they're way ahead in developing, the technologies. But at the same time, I think there's an important role, for the public sector, to kind of, to promote data portability, to make sure that, the data is fair, no? What the government needs to make sure that data is fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable.
Is that happening right now? Yeah, Maximo, go ahead.
No. The point that I want to make, so in economics, there is a concept called natural monopoly, which basically what it says that you need to do significant investments, fixed investments for these technologies to operate. And digital technologies require a network, require broadband. And if the private sector was far ahead and they could do it, why they didn't do it? Why we have the digital divide? That means that for them, it still is not profitable. So they have a state-of-the-art technology, but it doesn't mean that they will be able to close these digital divide gaps. And for sure, once you close the gap, then the issue is, okay, how we compete. And that's what Martin was saying. There are regulations that are needed to have avoid this specific investment. So if a company enters because of the natural monopoly position and have control over the core network, then you want interoperability. You want other companies to be able to join in and compete in a fair basis and not to give this capacity of monopoly to one company. So in that sense, the government has a lot of roles to play. Regulation, creating this environment to attract this investment, can be PPP, public-private partnerships, it can be concessions, but there is a big investment of the core network that needs to be in place, especially in the areas which are far away and where most of these smallholder farmers are.
And also another area would be, for the public sector, to kind of, safeguards farmers' data privacy, security, and ownership. This is not necessarily guaranteed if you just leave it up to the private sector. So in that respect, also legal and regulatory framework, should be make sure that actually the users actually trust the system. No.
So we're talking here about best practices from the government's perspective. Let's talk about technical applications, Maximo. Give us some examples.
No, there are many technical applications. The idea of digital technologies, again, they are just a mean to do something. They are not the solution of the problem, but this mean is very cost effective. And for example, I can use it to distribute in a cost-effective way information to farmers. If farmers have access to cellular phones, we can easily, very cheaply, distribute information to them. I just have to build an Excel sheet, the phone numbers, put what I want to transfer to them, and I send the message to them. Now, of course, that assumes that they have access. No? I can also use more sophisticated things like blockchains, for example, to do traceability, to assure that they are complying with the standards so that they can also trade, and not only in the local, but also in the regional markets or international. I can use technologies also to accelerate access to finance, because I can have applications with the score systems informations in it. And I can also give them information on extension. There is a lot of work now going on extension through digital devices, and also on ways in which we can give real-time support to them. So they can take a picture of the problem, send it up to the cloud, and then experts can respond to them and give a solution to them.
Conversations convened by the World Bank. The audience always want to know, well, what is the World Bank doing in this area? Martin.
Yes, the World Bank actually is, supporting this agenda in several ways. And one we already discussed. It would be to invest in digital connectivity and other infrastructure, particularly in rural and remote areas and lagging regions. To actually to link farmers, to the network. Another area would, to kind of support countries' investment in I would say, non-digital enabling factors which are critical to the development of thriving ag-tech ecosystems, including new forms of public goods and institutions to connect high-impact innovations with data and use cases, including, for instance, agriculture observatories or weather and climate data. Another area that we're focusing on is the support, for the development of innovation ecosystems and platforms at the country level, based on, establishing creative partnerships between the public and the private sector to connect ag-tech startups, for instance, technology and agribusiness companies, financial institutions, and farmers' organizations. Also, we are actively engaging on concerns to promote global and national learning platforms to enable countries to learn from each others, as well as to benefit from global innovations, for instance, to the bank's Open Learning Campus learning program on digital agriculture. So those are a few examples, Femi, that we're engaging on, and the demand actually is pretty significant, showing a lot of interest of our clients actually to engage on this agenda.
Maximo, if I were going to ask you to be super candid about the challenges, the barriers for public sector success in digital agriculture, if you were going to say number one barrier is this, what would this be?
So, when we talk about digital technologies, we talk about basically three things: connectivity, capabilities, and content. And I think one of the major barriers we have, because for connectivity, although we have a significant digital divide, especially between rural and urban within countries, that can be resolved. The World Bank can play a role, and other IFIs can play a role. But for me, the most complex one is the capabilities, because that's education. And if you don't have those capabilities, then it's very difficult that farmers and rural people, which are older generations, and they are in most of the cases, they don't read and write. It's very difficult to use these technologies. And of course, innovation can provide videos and ways to do it. But at the end of the line, they don't have this capability. So for me, one of the biggest constraints is capabilities. The second one, if I have to continue talking of constraints, is that this is a sector which is oligopolistic for sure. It's very few companies can operate and bring the services. It's not a sector that you have perfect competition. And for that, you require institutions, what we call complements. No, you require institutions and governance. And the government can start building the regulatory agencies, but the companies will always have more capacity to bring these people out of the government, and therefore has more control. So, and that has happened in Latin America. Beautiful regulatory agencies were set up, then the big companies came in and captured them. So I think we need to leapfrog. We need to learn from where it has worked, how, and try to help governments to minimize those risks.
One more thought, Martin, and I'm plagiarizing your thought here, and that is COVID-19, our global pandemic, Where does that factor into this conversation?
Excellent question. Yeah, so what you see is that because of all the lockdowns that were kind of put in place because of COVID-19, it has actually kind of exposed, I mean, the vulnerabilities of the supply chains. No, so suddenly urban markets couldn't be supplied. So you saw an interesting and worrisome kind of increase in food insecurity on the one hand, going hand in hand with increases in food loss and waste. So there's a lot of interest now in building back better, I mean, supply chains and making sure that they are resilient. And of course, digital applications, I mean, can actually play a very important role to better connecting producers to consumers. So that's definitely an area of great interest, and making the applications of digital agriculture technologies, even more attractive and important than we thought that it might be the case before COVID-19.
Gentlemen, thank you for your thoughts and your expertise. Appreciate you both. And now we close our program with the Vice President of Sustainable Development at the World Bank.
Thank you for a very interesting event. We heard today that digital agriculture is important not only to keeping the food system functional, especially during the pandemic, but also to building a future food system that is equitable, efficient, and of course sustainable. And we are not there yet. How can we support the efficient, equitable, and sustainable digital transformation of the agriculture food system? Some takeaways from today's discussion are that non-digital enabling factors are critical. Maybe that's the first point to make. Better connectivity infrastructure is essential to preventing a digital divide. We need to be creative in getting the public and private sector to work together to collect data and connect stakeholders, including through public-private partnerships with incubators. Governments need to embrace the digital revolution by investing in institutional reforms, data and use of digital technologies for service delivery. Government has a role in helping digital innovation reach farmers, and in particularly smallholder farmers. Scaling high-impact innovation for smallholders includes creating the institutions to connect innovators and farmers. In this context, digital innovation hubs can be the infrastructure to link the stakeholders and support the scaling of innovation, because only if we go to scale do we really have a meaningful impact. We also need to get the regulatory environment right. Maybe that's the second point on data governance, but also to make sure that we allow competition in digital service provision. The issue of how to deal with an innovator's need to get access to data, and at the same time, make sure that the collection, sharing, and reusing of data enables a healthy competitive environment and respects privacy, is critical to resolve. We also heard that data governance is a complex issue that many countries that are advanced in the digital space are still grappling with. Major issue in Europe, major issue in the US, everywhere in the world. Data governance, and that means data privacy and more generally the regulatory environment around data use and sharing, and the question of data ownership, is an issue that's not specific, of course, to the agriculture sector and is approached from an economy-wide perspective. However, it is an especially sensitive issue in agriculture, which is a sector that is often characterized by an imbalance of powers between farmers and agribusiness. And there are concerns that data might yet be another way to assert power over farmers. The private sector has been coming up with some solutions, including codes of conduct that create frameworks and define obligations within digital agriculture service contracts. But it is unclear to the state how effective they can be, as they're voluntary and might not apply across jurisdiction. And some governments, for instance, the Netherlands, are still wondering how to deal with the specifics of the agriculture sector. The good news is that the new institutional arrangements and technologies might also help provide new ways of sharing and managing data. For instance, data cooperatives can help farmers and have additional power over who can access their data. Institutional innovations such as pre-competitive spaces can also allow private sector companies to cooperate around common pools of data to support innovation. This is what Europe's trying to develop to support the development of the artificial intelligence. Governments can make better use of data for their decision making, but that requires investing in capacity building and data systems. Governments don't have to start from scratch. They can rely on information and analysis from satellites for their decision making. Soil maps and early warning systems are relying on remote sensing data and analytics that can inform Europe, but also African countries alike. Each Ministry of Agriculture should have a data officer to support the creation of farmers' registries and other databases which can support not only their own public service delivery, but also support connecting farmers and innovators. Data can help government better target their spending, the subsidy programs and support programs, and such make better use of public money. They can better target beneficiaries, but they can also better support environmental outcomes, which clearly needs to become the trend in the way governments support their farming communities if we want to achieve more sustainability. We need to better take into account the specificity of the agriculture sector to support its digitization and bridge the finance gap for innovation between pilots and seed funding and venture capital. The process of digitalization of the agriculture sector is different than in other sectors. Agriculture cannot be fully dematerialized. Even if new technologies such as vertical farming might ultimately decouple agriculture production from land, it still relies on tangible assets, and the testing of technologies is dependent on nature's cycle. We will need to get more patient capital into the digital agri-space to accommodate digital technologies' need for iterations of testing and failing before scaling. Not everything will work right away, we know that, and therefore we need to have a finance package that can accommodate that. So what is the World Bank Group doing to support digital agriculture now and in the future? The World Bank Group is working in about 18 countries globally to support governments to develop data-driven digital ecosystems through analytical work and investments in partnership with technology companies, ag tech startups, agribusinesses, financial institutions, and other development partners. So we work with a broad network of players and actors in the space. The Bank Group supports governments to develop an enabling policy and ecosystem for data-enabled digital technologies in the agro and food space. This includes supporting governments to digitize farm data registries and a data platform, to integrate farm data, weather data, crop data, and transaction data to enable governments to use data analytics for public policy and decision making. We also work alongside our digital connectivity and infrastructure investments to build innovations and applications for agri-food systems. We also work with the private sector, as I said, including ag tech startups, agribusiness technology companies, food e-commerce, to incubate and accelerate innovations jointly with the IFC, which is also increasing its investments in the ag tech space. Maybe just at the end, a couple of examples of our work in digital agriculture. One was working with the Ministry of Agriculture in Morocco to develop a green agriculture program for results, which supports digitizing agriculture and food data advisory services, supporting digital technologies innovation through ag tech startups and the private sector in the areas of climate smart agriculture, precision agriculture, market intelligence, and food traceability systems. This also includes an open data platform for food and agriculture systems in Morocco to boost incubation and acceleration of digital agriculture opportunities. We're also supporting the development of a digital data and innovation ecosystem with the Ministry of Agriculture in Indonesia in partnership with technology companies like Microsoft, ag and fintech startups and agribusiness companies, with a particular focus on engaging young and millennial farmers. So with that, I hope I provided a bit of a summary of what you've heard during this very interesting session. And I hope that we find ways to continue to collaborate, work together, and put funding and our knowledge together to take this to scale for the benefits of our farmer and the future of our food system. Thank you very much.
Jürgen Vogelé, Vice President, Sustainable Development at the World Bank. And that concludes our look at digital agriculture and new frontiers for the food systems. Thank you so much for your company. If you are interested in the work that the World Bank is doing in this area, where is the World Bank investing? Which countries is the World Bank supporting? Let me recommend that you go to www.worldbank.org/agriculture. Really easy to remember, www.worldbank.org/agriculture. Thanks for watching.